Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we will be touring Albertsons Stadium, giving you some facts about the stadium and giving you some history on it as well. This stadium is near and dear to my heart. I grew up going to Boise State games here. This is the home of the Boise State football team. Located in Boise, Idaho, near downtown and along the Boise River. Nicknamed the Smurf Turf due to the blue field, this is a very controversial stadium. Seems like everybody I talk to either loves or hates this stadium due to the blue field. Every photo you see today was taken by me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can write in the comments section what you like about this stadium. And with that, let's start the tour. The current stadium opened up back in 1970 with a capacity of 14,500. The current capacity is 36,387 with a record capacity of over 37,000. By no means is this stadium very large for college football, but you cannot deny the home dominance Boise State's had here over the years, and if you ever go to a game here, you can see why they've been so dominant. This is one of the loudest college football stadiums I've ever been to. It's hard for me to find some facts on just how loud it is. I did see some numbers though saying it was over 120 decibels. I've been to a lot of Pac-12 games, and outside maybe Oregon and Washington, maybe Utah, most of the Pac-12 just isn't very loud. So even though this is so small, the fans, the atmosphere here, it's really intimidating, a very loud place to play. When the stadium opened up back in 1970, there was only an upper deck on the west side. The upper deck you see here on the east side was added in 1974, bringing the capacity up to 20,000 seats. The corner seating was added to the south end zone in 1997, bringing the capacity up to 30,000. One of the biggest additions added to the stadium in my lifetime was in 2008 when they added the skybox, bringing the capacity up to 32,000. This is a view from outside the stadium looking back towards it. I remember when this was going up, they had the two towers going up, very exciting to see. They're now covered in brick. You can see from this photo just how large the Sky Center is. In Boise State, not having a very large stadium, it is pretty impressive how large this actually is. I mean, if you look at my other videos, look at Stanford Stadium or something like that, it's just so much smaller. So, pretty impressive for how large the stadium is. When there's not a football game going on the stadium, other events can be held at the center. I know things like proms and other events are held up here. I think this is a great view just showing kind of the north side of the center. It comes out and you have the framing to pick it up below. Years ago, the north end zone used to only have a single tier of bleacher seating that was temporary, which you can see here. Behind the temporary seating, they had a small video board that had advertising around it. If you look beyond the seating, you can see that they had the practice field beyond it, and during game day, they would have tailgating and other events there. This is a view from that practice field looking back at the stadium with all that tailgating going on. With the minimal seating in the north end zone, it gave you a great view of the mountains and the river. You can see all the trees below. And then you also have the downtown of Boise. You can't see it from this view. If you sit on the other side of the stadium, you'll see downtown. But it just gave you such great views back in the day. During that same time period, the south end zone had very similar seating. It was a single tier of temporary bleacher seating. Behind the bleachers in the south end zone, they had a very small scoreboard. It wasn't even a video board. And then you can see behind that, they had the old football offices. You can see from this photo that there used to be a track that went around the field. So the football team played here, but then also the track and field was here. And that is why you had temporary bleachers on the north and south end zone. So when you weren't playing football and you had a track event, those could be removed. Otherwise, they put the bleachers on top of the track for games. If you're standing on the west side of the stadium and you look to the north, you'll see the indoor football practice facility that they built back in 2006. This is a view looking at that practice facility from inside the stadium. This allows them to play there year-round without having to play out on that grassy field that I showed you before. On the south side of the stadium, they ended up replacing the bleacher seating with a larger set of bleachers. It still would not allow to connect either side of the stadium, unfortunately, but it was an upgrade from what was there previously. With the completion of the indoor practice facility shown before, I mentioned that they no longer had to play on the grassy field beyond the north end zone. And you can see from this photo what it allowed them to do is they were able to build these large football facility on the north side that had recruiting lounge and all sorts of offices for the football team. And it was a big improvement from what they had before. And this photo again shows the football facility under construction, and you can see that the seating on the north end zone still small, still bleacher seating, but it's at this point it's now permanent seating, and it's a little bit larger, a little bit nicer at this point. This is a view showing that completed football facility, and you can see in this photo the next thing that they did is they then renovated the video board. It no longer had the small video board with advertising around it. This is a much larger, newer video board in its place. This shows the completed product of the facility and the new video board on the north end zone. You may have noticed it a few slides before, but what allowed them to do all this is they removed the track around the field. And at this point in time, they no longer had the track, but they still had this gray surface around the field. With all this being done, they finally went in on the south end zone and made a much larger, more permanent seating area behind the end zone. Again, it's still a single tier, all bleacher seating, but it definitely now encloses the stadium on the south end zone. This is a view looking at that seating from outside the stadium. And the really nice thing that happened when they completed this is it now allowed people to go from the east side to the west side of the stadium. They could walk through this area on the south side, and it connected the whole stadium together very nicely. If you look closely in this photo, you can see where the pathway is between the existing concrete structure and the new bleacher seating. It's in between the first and second tier on the left side where the concrete is. If you look around the stadium now, one thing you'll notice is it's not a huge structural change, but what they did is they removed the gray that was around the playing surface, so now everything is blue. One brand new, very exciting addition to the stadium this year in 2023, though, is the large video board in the south end zone. This is a view inside the stadium looking up at that large video board. If you remember from the past, they didn't even have a video board. It was just a tiny little scoreboard, so this is a vastly huge improvement. That gets us caught up on the history of the stadium. Now we can move on to some of the other aspects of the stadium. The first thing we'll start with is the Hall of Fame is in the southwest corner of the stadium. Out in front of where the Hall of Fame is, if you come walking up to it, they have this great brickwork, and it says the Hall of Fame. So if you have a hard time finding it, just look for this area. And right below that sign, they have this great statue of Lyle Smith. Not going to get into it on this video who he is. If you don't know, right behind the statue on that brickwork, they have a little plaque that goes over the history of who he is and the significance of him in Boise State football. As you walk past the statue towards the Hall of Fame, towards those brick pillars, don't forget to look down on the ground. This is just showing some of the names and some of the donors that you'll see. This is right outside the Hall of Fame. It's the Boise State Broncos, and they have this great statue of a Bronco. One thing to note is the Hall of Fame isn't just football, there's other sports in there as well. This is a view inside the Hall of Fame. One of the first things you'll be greeted with, you can see in this photo, is the Fiesta Bowl trophies that Boise State's football team has won. Another cool thing they have inside is this. If you walk over here, they have a history of the stadium. So if you want to learn more about the stadium and you happen to be there, there's a lot of facts there you can quickly read. This is walking out to the field from the Hall of Fame. You can see the glass. This is how you get into the Hall of Fame. So if you're ever watching a game on TV and you didn't know what that tall glass area was on the southwest corner, well, that's where the Hall of Fame is. The banner changes. When I was there, you can see it shows all the bowl games that Boise State's won over the years. One thing we really haven't talked about up to this point, and what probably makes the stadium the most famous of all, is the fact that it has the blue field. And if you don't know, the blue field was first installed in 1986, making it the first blue field in the country. As you look around the stadium, one thing you'll notice, and something we've touched on previously, is pretty much all the seating is bleacher seating. You don't have nice chairback seating like San Diego State Stadium. And the east and west side, pretty much the whole structure is purely concrete and not steel. Another thing that makes the atmosphere at the stadium great is the color scheme of the fans. You can see at this game that they had blue, orange, and white. You can also see the downtown in the background that I mentioned in before. And throughout the season, every game they have a different color scheme, so it's not the same every game. This game here, everybody was supposed to wear white, so it's always cool to show up the stadium and see what everybody's wearing. This is a view outside the stadium, and the tailgating during game day is great for Boise State, especially early on in the season when it's not so cold. People still show up and come out during the cold season as well, so I definitely recommend checking out tailgating. And for my drinkers out there, the nice thing about the tailgating is they have this zone around the stadium that you can, walk around with any type of alcohol you want. You don't have to worry about open containers. So it makes it really nice to be able to, go to the gas station, grab some beer, do whatever, and not have to worry about that. I think one thing that makes this stadium so loud is the steep upper seating. You can see from this view just how steep it is, and it brings the fans very close to the field. This is a view of what the stadium looks like as of now. You have two tiers of seating on the west and east sides, and in the north and south end zones, you have a single tier of seating. Another thing that really makes the stadium great in the atmosphere is if you go there, they have the Boise State chant, where one side of the stadium chants Boise, the other side chants State. It's very loud. It's a very unique and cool thing that I really enjoy during games. The football stadium is located on Boise State's campus. You can see there it's adjacent to the basketball stadium and then the indoor practice facility that we talked about previously. Broncos Stadium has hosted a bowl game every year since 1997. It's the longest running bowl game in a cold weather environment. You can see this one here. This is no longer the current bowl game. This is one from way back in the day. This is one that was going on when I was growing up, but it's pretty impressive to keep it going in a cold weather environment. If there's anything bad to say about the stadium, I would have to say it's the concessions. When I went to a game recently, it's just the lines have gotten so long. They changed the rules a couple of years ago where you can actually buy beer at the game, which that part's nice. But then, you can't leave the stadium, so the lines for beer is just so long. You go to somewhere like San Diego State, it's just you have so many bars and stuff to check out. So it's definitely something that needs to be improved, and there are renovations coming to the stadium. So with that, let's talk about some of the upcoming renovations. The first one on the north end zone, they will be connecting the north end zone seating to the east and west side. It'll be a completely enclosed bowl shape. It'll only be a single level. It's not going to be double deck, but at least it'll be fully enclosed on the east side. I should say fully enclosed on the north side. Moving on to the east side, though, they will be renovating the east side as well. They'll have updates to the concourses, the seatings, and things like that. So it'll be really nice, and it's long overdue. South of the stadium, where they currently have the small athletic center, they will be creating this large athletic facility. It'll be for multi-sports, but that'll be a really cool thing for the university. Every video I like to throw in a photo of myself at the stadium, just showing that I was actually there. This brings us to the end of the tour. Subscribe to the channel. Let me know what stadium you want me to do a video on next, and have a good day.